Hello everybody and welcome back to our channel. Today we'll be reviewing this stunning wall system composition made up with our two collections, Aliant and Plan. We are in a new location for us, which is our lounge in Archamps, a French town right south of Geneva. I said stunning because it's made up of multiple topics, different features that we're going to discover. Let's dive in. As we said multiple times, this is a review of this very specific composition and not of the overall collection, because you can create thousands, or I would say even millions of composition, and with your interior designer you can conceive and then design your own composition. This wall system is 7 meters and 87 centimeters and it's 278 centimeters high. Here in our lounge we made it by the centimeter, which is something which you can do in your home. Let's review the different elements. So we have this first part, which has been built with our Aliant collection. It's characterized by these partitions, because it's technically a bookshelf. These are 35 millimeters thick partitions, which kind of makes the difference between those wall system collections which have 30 millimeters thick, while Aliant is 35 millimeters. There's no technical difference really, it's really a matter of taste. There are those who prefer 35, those who prefer 30. What do you like more? Write it in the comments. And here we see that we have 5 columns in identical width, and they are built differently because we created this section with an idea of symmetry here in the middle. But we start with this column with open niches and these doors. Okay, this is pretty standard. Then we have this stunning section with the 3 glass doors. Okay, inside every glass door we have these inner drawers. Okay, when you create this sort of inner drawers, bear in mind that you always get these additional panels. The aim of these additional panels is making it possible that when you open the drawer opens perfectly and doesn't get to touch the door itself. I would like to point out a detail here, because not only the aluminum frame has a beautiful shape, but you have these very specific hinges. Here you see its outer element, very clean design, and also the inside is very clean. Inside we also have these these glass fume shelves, and you can perceive the effect of the LED lighting, which especially lightens up the back part of the column. This is the right perspective, because from where Stefania is filming, you don't perceive the LED light itself, you just perceive the light that is produced. And well, you can actually choose where you position your lighting, because from where the camera was filming before, you would only perceive the lighting effect, and when we move on this side, you do perceive the LED lighting. So why do we place LED lighting like this? Because, for example, in a room like this, when I'm sitting on the sofa and when I'm watching telly, I don't get blinded by too much light. This last column of the bookshelf section is very similar to the first one, but built in a different way, because here we see that this partition kinds of rests on the cabinets, and well, you can have partitions that rest on cabinets that stand on the floor. In this case, it's a hanging partition. So you could have a full Aliant composition completely lying onto the floor, or you could have a full Aliant composition which is completely attached to the wall. In this case, we have a mix of topics, and here is the intersection between Plan elements and the Aliant partitions and bookshelf system. So we get to the Plan cabinets. Here we have a tilting door, okay. Then we have 2 drawers, well, this is 128, this is 64 and 64. I'd like to point out that with Plan cabinets, you can have 2 building systems, one with the top placed on top of the door, okay, and so you would see a joint here, because the top would cover the door itself, and this approach where the top is behind the door, okay. When you do like this, you kind of get a cleaner design, I would say more modern, but you get a joint at some specific spots, because you cannot have a single piece of 3 meters and something, because you would not be able to move it. Then we move on. Here we have another tilting door. So with this composition, here we have 128, 128, and 128, and this gives us a full horizontal element of 3 meters and 84. This creates a wide space for the television. You could rest the television on the base units, but of course in a situation like this it's nice to attach it to the wall. I'd like to point out how beautiful, I can say, the hanging cabinets are. These are hanging base cabinets, and they are 32 centimeters high. They are roughly 32 centimeters above the floor, and this allows to position this LED lighting, which creates a nice effect. We move on to the last part of the composition, where we have a working area, an home. I would not even call it home office, because it's very refined. It's more for occasional working rather than full-time working from home. But well, we have this 192 centimeters plan. It's called mensolone in Italian. It literally means a big shelf, mensolone, and it's a hanging desk. It's 53 centimeters high, so when you actually sit and work, it's pretty comfortable, but I would not suggest to work, I don't know, 40 hours a week on this sort of desk. And well, we left this central part free, so that you can have your screen or your laptop. And I can point out this beautiful composition made up with totally different type of cabinets, because we have these open compartments. They are the same open compartments that we can see on the Betis bookshelves. Actually, this is the open compartment. Then you can add the dividing shelf in the middle as an accessory, and then you add these boxes, which are covered in hide leather, available in different colors. They actually have a metal structure, and then they are covered in hide leather, belting leather. And so you have these kind of drawers. Bear in mind that they are not proper drawers, because you don't have rails here on the side, and there's not a break at the end. So if you pull too much, the box could fall. So it's a box which acts as a drawer. And you have this completely glass door. These stained glass bands, they actually cover the hinges that then, when you close the door, they get hidden in the metal structure. You get to choose the color of the metal structure from the whole available collection of lacquers. And well, I use the expression stunning, well, not only because of the effect of the LED lighting on the upper shelf, but also because you do perceive what you place inside from the front, but also from the sides, and this is what makes it beautiful to look at. So we described all elements of this composition, but what is really important, but doesn't appear as striking, is the boiserie panels. Sometimes, the beauty of boiserie panels is that they're there, they make the difference, but you might not perceive them straight away, because they actually cover the wall. They appear to be the surface of your wall. They give you a special warmth, this is my opinion. And here you see, this is a wooden boiserie with the grove effect. The grove effect refers to the fact that you can have a plain boiserie, or you can have this slatted effect for this carving, which is actually black inside. It's actually built in a peculiar way, because they use, in the factory, we use a black laminate panel. This black laminate panel is then covered with walnut, with real walnut. Then the carving is done, the walnut gets cut, and then you perceive the black laminate underneath. So it's not colored inside by painting. It's actually two materials, one that stays in the front only, and one that you perceive it in the back. Very nice craftsmanship. So with the Aliant and Plan collections, we have a wealth of materials. We have laminates, we have lacquers, we have woods, metals, all sorts of materials and finishes. Here we have oak in the fashion wood type of shades that we can give. Well, you know, the expression fashion wood is used because it's not a standard lacquer. on the wood, a standard shade. Actually, there are two stages in the factory. I visited the factory and it's amazing because there's a very advanced automated plant where you get the standard basic paint on top of the wood. Then every panel goes to a different section where artisans with specific sponges, they actually pass every bit of the surface, and you get these sort of shades where you don't get a single color, but you get multiple shades on every panel, and this is what makes it special. This is biscotto, biscuit. Then we have the mock and shine finish here on the perimeters, on the frames of the glass doors. We have rasato fumé, for example, which was here, it was used, it's a laminate finish, a kind of stone effect laminate, very nice to look at and with a good touch and feel. Here it was used on the back panels of the columns and also on the desk. I can point out that on the back panels of the columns, this is an Aliant collection, but even with Aliant clients, nobody wants to waste. And so, well, actually choosing laminate back panels actually helps in saving some money on such a composition. While with the desk, it's a different purpose because, you know, laminate is very practical, a very practical surface, is difficult to scratch, easy to clean. And so, well, there are different purposes, but the one finish that satisfies two objectives. Then here we move on to the lacquered plan cabinets. Of course, we can have all sorts of materials. Here we chose shiny lacquer. It could have been matte lacquer. Here we chose shiny. This is shiny sand. I want to point out that this is not direct lacquer, but is polyester shiny lacquer. It does make a difference because with direct lacquer, you paint the panel. You basically have, let's say, like a waterfall of paint that goes on top of the panel. There's a mechanism which moves the panel. The waterfall of paint falls on the panel and the panel is painted. It's well done with matte lacquers. With shiny lacquers, when it's done that way, then you get tiny defects or even relevant sometimes defects on the surface. While with polyester brushed shiny lacquer, what you get is that a panel is actually lacquered and then with a polyester paint, which is then brushed with specific brushes, and the surface is very clean, like a mirror surface. And even when you look at it with a reflection, contrasty reflection, you perceive like a glass. It does appear like glass. I would say perfect surface. Bear in mind that with polyester brushed surfaces, you might, in certain situations, you might perceive the circular traces, the circular signs of the brushes. That's not a defect. It's actually something that you don't normally perceive it. It's something that you might perceive in very specific lighting conditions, and only when looking in this moment myself, I don't perceive it in any way, but it's something to know, and it's actually a sign of a properly made shiny lacquer panel. So we come to the end of today's product review about the Aliant Plan wall system that we have here in our lounge in Archamps. I hope that you like this concept of mixing multiple approaches, the partitions and wall system approach with the hanging cabinets and the boiserie and the home office desk. See you next time.